HardMediaPodcast, powered by Hard Media Group and Hard Service Solutions. Hard Media Group is a social media solutions company. Hard Service Solutions is also a social media solutions company, but they're focused on the home services industry, and we do very well in both of those spaces. We have a very special guest, Erica Rankin, that comes from Toronto, which is our first guest and our first international guest, if you want to give it the international feel. And she also has the same last name as Justin Rankin, and they are not related, and that is weird. I only know one Rankin, and he's sitting right next to me, and I just met the third one today. FYI. So let's dive right in, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Erica, I noticed a lot of the content you're creating. We like to have content creators on here and influencers and people that are changing the way business is done, as well as entrepreneurs. You check all of those boxes, which is super cool. So, gained my attention, and I was like, all right, I got to reach out and see if she'll hop on the podcast, because you're a big proponent of personal brand. You're a big proponent of growing your influence, as well as you created Brodo, which is one of the coolest things I've seen. I absolutely love what you've done with the marketing and checked it out. We've kind of dove in, and someone like we try to be as healthy as possible. It gets suspect sometimes, but we give it a shot. So we want to just have you come on, talk a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just start ballparking you some questions that should be a little bit of fun.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks for reaching out. Let's do this.
Awesome. So let's dive into Brodo, right? It like seems to be super hot. We looked at the following, everything you're doing. You seem to be everywhere and everything for Brodo. Can you just dive in a little bit about what that process is like of starting the company and where you're at now, and give us the background and the history?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you, I guess, a quick recap of me and when I started the company. So I took psychology. I went to school for that and started working a 9 to 5. Absolutely hated it. Got inspired through listening to entrepreneurial podcasts. Decided to quit my job, pack my life up, and backpack for 3 months through Southeast Asia. Met entrepreneurs, got inspired, got home, Googled business workshop near me, and like 8 months later, I launched Brodo, which is basically a better for you snack company. We do an edible cookie dough right now with added protein, clean ingredients, plant-based, less sugar, no artificial sweeteners or preservatives. And we're actually going to be expanding our product portfolio and launching cookies in a few months in the US. So it's been a journey. I have kind of been very scrappy with it. Like, I started it out of my car in 2019, stored product in my car for 3 months, drove with my heat off, because you can do that in Canada. It gets really cold here. So my vehicle doubled as inventory storage, which was helpful. And then, it blew up over the pandemic. It was kind of a blessing in disguise for me, because everyone was at home scrolling on social media, like watching TikToks, on Instagram, on Facebook, and was able to grow a following of over 200,000 just on TikTok over the span of like a year and a half. And then, I was selling out of inventory and decided to, I guess, go all in and take things really serious, and partnered with a manufacturer, a distributor. I'm in the middle of a raise right now, so we're continuing to just expand and grow the company and grow the team. And it's been a journey, and it's been fun, but it's been not, there's been its challenges as well. So,
man, that's super awesome, by the way. Like, huge accomplishments. I have to ask, what motivated you to do this? Because entrepreneurship is risky, it's hard, there are alternatives that are less painful. What made you really want to dive all into this Brodo concept? And was this your first entrepreneurial experience?
Yeah, this is, besides, like, I used to do lemonade stands as a kid, so I don't really know if that would like
You're a
count.
born entrepreneur.
I just, yeah. But I recognized that I was not happy doing what I was currently doing. Like, I was working in my field, in psychology. I got the job that I thought I wanted. I just didn't like it, and I was struggling financially. Like, I wasn't making a lot of money. I didn't have like any benefits, because, like in Canada, you usually get benefits, but I didn't have any with the job that I had, because it was a contract job.
Hold on, stop right
And
there.
my sister,
Wait a minute.
yeah,
You're in Canada and you didn't get benefits? Yo, I'm just gonna start miscellaneous arguments from now on when people bring that up. I'm just gonna be like, nope.
I
I'm kidding.
know,
I'm
I
kidding.
know.
Go ahead.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
yeah, if I'm not gonna have benefits, I might as well have my own company, right? So I
Right.
still don't have benefits. So if I go get my teeth cleaned, I gotta pay and do all that, you
Yeah.
know? So it's fine. But I guess, yeah, I was not happy and I realized I'm like, I don't want to live my life like this. And I looked around and everyone that I was surrounded by was just miserable, I guess, so to speak. Yeah, I started listening to podcasts and I got very curious about entrepreneurship. And I always thought that you needed a business degree or you had to be born into a family of entrepreneurs or you kind of had to have the path already created for you. I didn't realize that you can create the path. And then when I went away to Asia, I started like running into entrepreneurs that were doing all different types of things. Like I met a guy who was a former lawyer, hated practicing law. Literally, he was from Toronto and he left Toronto, moved to Thailand, and was buying properties and building these immaculate homes
Wow.
and selling them. And he had no experience doing it. He's like, yeah, just kind of figure it out, you know. And then I met a guy who was a high school dropout who had a moving company, and there's just like all these different types of people doing all these really cool things. And the one thing that they all had in common was that they were just very passionate about what they were doing. Like when I spoke to them, you could feel the energy like in the tone of their voice. And I had never experienced that before. Like a lot of people live for the weekends, right? They're like, oh yeah, like Sunday scaries and tomorrow's Monday. And I thought that's how you were supposed to live your life, right? And I didn't realize there was a whole nother side. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what triggered me.
That's super interesting because when you say you thought that that was how you were supposed to live, right? And I think that we all have experienced that at one point where we're like, all right, I went to work at 8 and it's 5:30. I'm off and damn, in 2 hours I'm gonna go sleep and do it again. You know what I mean? And you're like, hey, is this it? And I think most people accept that and they're like, yeah, this is it. What's the big deal? You know? And you're one of those very few, which is, why you're an entrepreneur, where the light bulb goes off and now all of a sudden you're seeing through a different lens, like, hey man, something ain't right. I don't think this is it, And I think that every entrepreneur experiences that at some point. You talked about being at your job and you're like, hey, I got this job. I thought this was the job that I wanted. But hey man, my paychecks, they're not what I really want. I remember being at one of my old companies and I'm like, I started thinking like, man, how long is it going to take me to afford an SUV? You know what I mean? Like it may take 2 more years and a couple more promotions. I'm like, I don't think this is it. I think we could do something bigger and better.
Yeah, I think every entrepreneur has a defining moment where you're like, hey, this is miserable. And at least all the entrepreneurs that we've seen in success is like, hey, I'm a round peg. That's a square hole. This isn't going to work. I got to get out of this as soon as possible and go take control of my own destiny. It's super cool to hear. Because, I mean, Derek and I are from very similar backgrounds as you, like not coached into this world. So it just kind of happened throughout circumstances very similar. So that's awesome. Let's can we talk about your influence a little bit? You have a large influence. Brodo has an amazing influence for a company. You don't see that kind of influence behind a company standard, and I know you've done some coursework on it, and we've had some large influencers on here as well, and it seems that there was a really cool pivot point during the COVID period, and you kind of alluded to that as well, where you were able to gain a little of that traction. Can you talk about that? I mean, the following Brodo has for a company is almost unmatched by most that aren't maybe Microsoft or Apple. You have a great following.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think I am a solopreneur and I am scrappy and I didn't have the ability to outsource a lot of things. So I remember when I launched my business, I hit publish on my Shopify website and I remember like telling my friends and family and I'm like, yeah, Google it, like look it up. And they Googled Brodo and it wasn't on the first page and it wasn't on the second page of Google. And they literally couldn't find it. And I didn't understand. And then I realized, oh, what's SEO? Oh, what's marketing? Oh, you have to do all these things on top of it for people to find you. So I couldn't spend money on paid ads. So I'm like, I just have to put myself out there, And I guess like early 2020, my good friend, she started a business and she just started posting on TikTok and I watched her in real time grow a huge following, sell out of inventory. She was doing phenomenal with the platform. And I kind of had this ego and almost felt like I don't want to go on there. It's a dancing app for kids, you know, like everyone paints it with the same brush, I find. I think a lot of companies now realize the potential that the platform has and they're getting on there. But I think I got on there at a really good time when, you know, there was less or there was more real estate for organic content on TikTok. Now, if you go on TikTok and you're scrolling on like the For You page, like I don't know, every third or fourth video is like a sponsored post. So there's like less opportunity to get on there organically. So before it was like I had videos popping off, going viral. Like I remember my first viral video, I sold out of inventory. I was panicking. Like my Shopify cha-ching was like going off and I was like, something's wrong. It's broken. Like what's happening? I had hundreds of Instagram followers. Like it was crazy. And then also like the mentality that I've had this whole time, and I have like Andy Frisella to thank for this because I listened to him and his content and his podcast and talking about like word of mouth, the power of word of mouth, and every customer matters. And I've always looked at my customers as friends and more than just like a follower or someone who is making a transaction. And like I send them voice notes and videos and I interact with them on a regular basis. And I think that's really helped me grow my following into what it is today because I know a lot of companies are very just surface level and they care about, you know, how many sales they're doing, and a customer is often just a number. There's really no more than that. And the good thing about being a small business is that you can have that personable emotional connection with the customer because oftentimes it's the founder who's doing all the things and who's communicating with them on a regular basis. So as much as being a startup founder with limited resources and capital sucks, I found a lot of blessings in it because it brought me closer to the people that were following me.
Awesome.
Yeah, so with like some of the coursework you're teaching, it's like it's probably going to go mostly land on small business owners or people trying to grow an influence in that space. On your other side, you're going B2C. Like which one do you prefer? You know, we actually weirdly enough are on the same. We also have a B2C company, and we have the B2B company, so we do a little bit of both. So I like to hear like it's that not that often that we have someone who also has touched both realms. Which one do you find more satisfying and more enjoyable?
That's an interesting question. I like both for different reasons. Like, Brodo is really awesome because I'm building a product that people love, and it's so cool to see like someone go out and buy the product with their hard-earned money and enjoy it, right? Like, it's so fulfilling. And then on the B2B side, it's really cool to help other founders grow and like learn and like teach them. Because even on the side, like I try to mentor and give back like a certain amount of times, like a month, and just like share my knowledge that I've learned through social media because that's something that I'm really good at. I'm not very good at operations. I'm good at marketing. So I'm just going to help people with their marketing and show them what they can do. So it fills different buckets for me, I would say.
Gotcha. So as far as Brodo, how'd you come about this name?
Yeah, so I used to do bodybuilding back in
Mm.
2018. It feels like a lifetime ago, but yeah, so I had to like not eat certain foods, obviously. I hired a coach and he's like, you can't eat these things. Like we had like a macro plan, so I had to basically like eat a certain amount of calories, proteins, carbs, and fats. So I basically was trying to figure out, okay, like how can I still like eat sweet treats, but like in a healthier way? So I spent so much time in my kitchen like making things that sound gross but taste amazing. Like I made chocolate pudding out of avocados. I would make brownies out of black beans and like maple syrup and cocoa powder. And then I would make these like protein cookie dough bite things. And it was, yeah, like less sugar, added protein. I blended like oat flour in there. And I would post these recipes on my Instagram and I would get a lot of traction and people would recreate my recipes and they take me, which was really cool. And then I also got messages from people that are like, oh, would you ever sell this? And I never really thought anything of it. I was like, why would someone want to buy this? Like, it takes me like 10 minutes to like whip it up and like roll them into balls and like put them in the freezer, you know? Like, that's just for me. And then I guess like after I got back from my trip, I sat down with myself and was like, okay, like, what am I passionate about and what do people want? Like, where can I add value? And like what is the market missing, and it just came back to those like little protein cookie dough bite things, and I was like playing around with names, and I thought of like pro dough, but that was taken and trademarked, so obviously I couldn't do that. And then I was thinking of like all these other names, and then I thought like, oh, okay, well, my friends and I would like jokingly say like, yo, bro, you even lift bro, and it's just like a fun term, like the bro culture. So
Yeah,
I thought brodo, it's fun. It like rolls off the tongue, and I don't know, it basically says what it is, right? So that's kind of how the name came about.
that's awesome. And that worked out really well, by the way.
Yeah,
So let me ask you
thanks.
this. You mentioned this trip to Asia, correct? Or
Right.
specifically, where did you go?
So I went to Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia.
Gotcha. So you went on, for lack of better words, an Asian tour, if you will, right?
Yeah.
This trip seems like it was like pivotal for your life. Like, what about this trip? It's almost like you came back like an awakening. What about this trip was so impactful for you?
There's like a variety of things, and honestly, I'm a very impulsive person, and I remember booking it, and I was just like, okay, let's do it, let's book it. And then a few days later, I was like, what have I done? I've never done this before. My parents were like, where are you going by yourself? They were
Wow.
extremely worried for me, and I'd never have been like really anywhere like that. Like I grew up in a very privileged, part of the world, and I had never been to a third world country. I've never immersed myself in a different culture. So I thought, okay, like I need to have a reality check, come back with more gratitude, see different parts of the world and how they live. And it was really cool because I did a tour and we actually got to do homestays. So the locals like brought us in. They like had rooms that they made these beds for us, and we sat down and ate dinner with them, and they cooked in their home. And I remember like not even be able to like really communicate with them because they didn't speak English. So we had like a translator on our phone, and we would like type something in and then show it. Or like, thanks for dinner. And they were like super sweet. And it was really cool to just like see how they lived. And I guess so that was a piece of it, was just like really, seeing how other people live in different parts of the world and how good we have it here, because I think I was losing sight of that. I was at my 9 to 5, miserable. Like my life sucks. Like nothing goes right for me. Like the system is broken. Um, so I guess that was a piece of it. And then the whole like running into entrepreneurs was really cool because I had never, like, none of my friends were entrepreneurs. I didn't know a single entrepreneur really in my life. Everyone worked the traditional job, traditional path. Same with my parents. I think I'm one of the first entrepreneurs in my family, actually. So,
Wow.
um, yeah, to like see that and like feel, like the energy of that was like really eye opening for me. And I think like that just excited me. And I got home and was like, I'm just going to figure it out. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. And the blessing is like, I'm young. I don't have a family. I'm not married. I don't have a mortgage. My car's paid off. Worst comes to worst, my parents will just take me in. So,
I got a plan B that's so cool. You don't even know.
Do you think like when you see happy simplicity in places that are like third world countries, and you're like, it's cool if I like lose it all, I'll just start over. It's like I think it helps with risk, or I get risk tolerance to an extent, right?
yeah, I think so. And seeing people, yeah, be so happy with so little. I came back here and I was like, I need to be a minimalist. Like, why do I have all these things? I don't need all these things. And I did cut back on the materialistic things. And I know, I am driven by materialistic things to an extent. Like, it would be so nice to have a really nice car that like doesn't have problems, like a house. And like that stuff is nice and it is an end goal, but like I don't rely on all of that stuff to make me happy anymore. More so is like, okay, what can I do? How can I add value? How can I be an example for others? That's the stuff that drives me. It's not the outside external stuff anymore.
Yeah, I think I fall in love with that process, right? I mean, if the external stuff comes, it's awesome as well. But
Right. It's
Yeah,
a byproduct.
no, for sure, for sure. I want to ask you, circle back a little bit to Brodo. So it's growing. Um, this is starting to become something really special. Um, in terms of hiring people, right? Is there a staff? Is it mostly outsourced? Like, could you, you know, what's kind of that journey been like, building it from, kind of the human kind of operations kind of point of view?
That's been very challenging for me because I'm very stubborn. And for the first 2 years, I wanted to do everything myself, and I did do everything myself. And then I realized I can't do everything myself if I want this business to grow. So I started working with mentors. And then this year has kind of been the year where we've really been focusing on growth and like bringing in people to help support the company and like the weak spots. So I have an operations advisor who now has advisory shares, and he's been a huge asset. We've been working together for several months. And I have one full-time employee who switched from part-time to full-time in February. And I call him a team member because we work together really well.
Yeah,
And yeah, he's been a great asset to the company, and he brings different perspectives as well to the table, which kind of helps me see things a different way. And he's helping support in like customer service and marketing and different ways of engaging with our audience and building community. Like that's something that I really prioritize for the business is community. And I think that's like the way to market moving forward is like trying to build out a really strong community and having that personable touch with the brand, right?
for sure.
So after Brodo or while having Brodo, I get the vibes like you're gonna end up being a serial entrepreneur. Like this isn't gonna be the last. You're gonna have multiple ventures. Is that true? Or like, hey, you're like, this is it. I want to blow it up to the moon.
Yeah, I will be a serial entrepreneur for sure. It's funny, like my friends and I, we just launched a newsletter. So a little plug, it's called We Got the Goods, and we're gonna send out like our first edition next week. And so this is kind of the start of something bigger that we have planned down the road. So we're working our way towards that. But I have a lot of ideas. And again, like my advisor, we kind of talk about different things, and he has this thing where he says, put it in the parking lot. So now that's how I kind of like operate my brain. Like when I veer off the rails and I have Brodo and I'm focusing on Brodo, trying to build Brodo. But then I'm like, ooh, this is a really good idea. I should do this or this. I'm like, Erica, put it in the parking lot. Put it in the parking lot. Do it later. Because I think like sometimes entrepreneurs you get very you like divert your attention into too many areas, and then you can't do five things really well. You can do like one or two things really well, right? Like you
Yeah.
can't give five things 20% of your energy. It just doesn't work that way. So I'm trying to focus on this business, grow this business, eventually have an exit. That is the plan. And then from there it would be really cool to invest in other female founded businesses, and then continue to venture out and do something else. I don't know what it will be, but yeah.
So that's like something that's pretty important to you. The connection with other successful female entrepreneurs, aspiring female entrepreneurs. Um, is that something that it's not like, hey, I'm a female entrepreneur, like, look at me, but like it is kind of a big deal because it's not as normal. So I guess how do you feel, in terms of keeping that narrative going and inspiring other women? Is that something that you're very passionate about?
Yeah, it is for sure. And I know me being like a woman who's raising money right now, it's not easy. And I've dealt with, and it honestly has been pretty good. Like I haven't really experienced that much sexism until lately, which
Mm.
is sad, but it happens. And like I want to be a resource for other female entrepreneurs where they can come to me, pitch to me, and have the opportunity to get funding from me, because it would make things a lot easier, I think. And there really are not that many female investors. I haven't actually had a conversation with one yet. So just
Wow.
to open that space and then pave the path, and then also be, yeah, like a role model, so to speak, and show other women that it's possible and that they can do it too. It is a male dominated space for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. So you said you really haven't experienced any issues, but you said lately, you know, was there a certain situation? Do you think you got to a certain level and now you started to experiencing some of these things? Like, I don't know how comfortable you are going into that, or maybe just kind of shedding some light on some of that experience.
Yeah, it only happened when I started fundraising. So when I started having conversations with investors, I've been like, I don't know if you know mansplaining, but like being talked down to, and like I know something, right? And like I talk about something and then I've just been interrupted and told that there's more that I could know and that I'm not doing things the right way and I should be doing it this way and
Yeah.
I should be partnering with a male partner who has operations. Like, like I've just been dealing with that. And then also like people have like called me like sunshine or sweetheart or things like that. And it's like,
Come
you
on over
know,
here, pumpkin. I'll help you.
Oh my gosh.
yeah. Like,
Come on.
like I've had, it happens a lot. And it's
That's
really frustrating.
Yeah.
And I think, especially like on LinkedIn too, like there'd be people that would message me or they'd be very serious. They're like, oh, I'm really interested. I heard you're raising, da da da. And these people are pretty established as well. So I'm like, okay, like they're interested. And then they'd be like, oh, here's my Calendly link, sweetheart. And I'm like, oh, we're immediately blocking, like
Yeah.
immediately blocking. It is really frustrating. And I feel like, my best friend, she's a female founder as well. And she feels uncomfortable going to meetings on her own because people don't take her seriously. And it's her and her boyfriend who are in on the business together. And whenever she goes to meetings by herself, oftentimes they say, oh, is Jack coming? Like, is your male partner coming to the meeting? So like that's frustrating as well because people kind of undervalue you simply because you're a woman.
Yeah.
It does happen.
you
Yeah.
think so? You think it's more due to the almost like a financial sector issue to an extent when it comes to raising capital? I know this is like slightly off subject. Do you enjoy raising capital? Derek loves it. He's good at it. I hate it.
Oh my God.
I do not like it because it's a full-time job on top of everything else. And then
Mm,
dealing with all of the other shit that comes with it, like that I've
that's
just
hard.
experienced, or there's people that just waste your time or, compare you to other businesses, or it's been like, it's been a journey.
Yeah.
Um, and the people that have invested so far, because I'm like halfway done my raise, they're really awesome people that have known me, and they're not people that have like messaged me and are like, I'm interested in investing. They're people who are like, when are you raising? Like, I really support you. I believe in what you're doing, and they're adding value in other ways as well. Like, they're people that I can trust, and they have their own businesses, and they're people that I can go to if I have a problem, and we have a very honest, open relationship. So it's hard to find that, I think. And it's also hard to explain to a lot of prospective investors that, like this industry, food and beverage specifically, like it's kind of a long play game. Like, you're not going to build and sell in like 1 or 2 years, right? And
Yeah.
when you tell them that it's going to take time, they're like, oh, when am I getting my money back? So
Retail.
you have to tell them, like, you shouldn't be relying on this investment. Like, this is a very risky investment for you, and this should just be somewhere you're putting some money and you might get it back. So
Yeah.
you might get more back.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is difficult,
I got
but
you.
Yeah, you're not betting on Brodo. You're betting on Erica. I got this.
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So, because this is like another level of pressure being an entrepreneur when, when you don't have investors to satisfy or, consult with them or talk to them about, certain aspects of the business, I think that adds a completely different layer of pressure. Because not only are you trying to satisfy yourself and the company, but you now have other people to satisfy that want repayment, looking for the ROI. They have opinions if things go wrong, or how is it handling that level or that side of the pressure being an entrepreneur?
So I think the pressure is worse when you have no money in the bank.
Mm,
So that's the way that I look at it. I
yeah,
would rather have investors on board and, know that the business is going to sustain itself and we're good, and, I'm not bleeding dry, than, like be running on fumes. That was more stressful for me. So, and again, I think it's because I'm not at the level too where I'm not working with a VC. I don't have like babysitters, so to speak, that are like regularly checking in with me.
right.
Like, I'm even like the people that have invested in my company, I help them, they help me. Like, we have a very like close relationship, and they trust me, and they're not like, you know, coming at me, like asking me all these questions, like, give me
Where's my
updates,
money?
and yeah, I know. So that is definitely a fear of mine too when bringing on someone who maybe I don't totally know. And that's why I've been apprehensive too about like who I'm bringing on as an investor, because it is a big commitment. It's like you're like marrying someone
Partner.
essentially, right? Like they're getting a piece of your business. So
Yeah. You're,
it's something
yeah.
that should be taken seriously, even with like the advisory shares that I had given out. Like up until this point, like I owned 100% of my company, and I am very careful and I'm very choosy with who I bring on. And like the person that has come on, like we worked together for several months. He's worked for my friend's company for 2 years, and he's someone that I trust and who has already added a lot of value. So I've, like that trust has been established, and then, the shares were split. But yeah, it does add pressure, I guess, to answer your question,
Yeah.
but not as much pressure as you think at this stage for me anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you this. You go after me. Mentors. You mentioned having a mentor or somewhat the importance of mentors. Um, how has that impacted you and your overall growth with everything that you're doing?
It has changed everything for my business. So in 2020, I hit a wall. This is when I was so stubborn. I was doing everything myself, right? Like I was making the dough, I was packing the dough, I was shipping the dough, I was doing marketing, I was doing bookkeeping. Like I was doing everything. And it got to a point where I was so miserable and I was basically flatlining. Like my sales weren't increasing. And I decided I'm going to go on LinkedIn because that's the only place where I know business people hang out. So I'm going to go on there, and I remember going through my pantry and like looking at all the products that I eat on a regular basis. And I started looking up their founders and their CEOs and their team. And then I just started messaging them, and I was like,
Interesting.
hey, this is me. This is my story. Da da da. I was also sending voice notes, I think, because I was like, you know what? People probably get like really weird copy paste messages, or, like what are the odds of them responding to that versus a voice note of this girl who's like stressed out and wants to talk to you.
Yeah.
So I remember messaging like so Mike Fata was one. He is the founder of Manitoba Harvest. They had a huge exit. They're everywhere, like Heb Parts. They basically pioneered those. But Susie York was another one, and she built Love Good Fats, like 100 million plus in revenue. So these are pretty established people in the industry, and I was very nervous to message them. I remember like being so scared. I'm like, what if they think I'm stupid, or they don't reply to me or whatever? And surprisingly, both of them replied to me. Susie's like, here's my cell phone number. Like, call me. Like, on my way to a meeting or something. And so I called her, and she like gave me advice. And to this day, like, she's like a friend of mine, and she's a resource, and she's added so much value to my company and a lot of other companies as well, especially like in the Canadian space. Um, but yeah, it's really important to have mentors, not to have too many, because a lot can have different opinions and you can kind of get
Yes.
overwhelmed and not really know what direction to go into. So I have a couple that I've been seeing and speaking to pretty consistently, and they do sometimes have conflicting opinions. So I sit down with myself and I go based off of what I think is best. I go off of gut feeling, and what makes the most sense for the company. But I think it's so important to surround yourself with people who have done what you're trying to do, who are like eons ahead of you, but then are also kind of maybe a little bit further ahead of you, and then maybe at the same level as you as well.
I just want to say this before I let Justin slide in. I think you have all of the elements of a successful entrepreneur because, for you to see that your company was struggling, for you to, number one, have humility enough to be like, all right, I need to reach out to someone. Then the level of resourcefulness where you're like, hey, I know I can probably reach out to LinkedIn, and not just LinkedIn. LinkedIn's vast. There's users everywhere, but for you to kind of get narrow and know how to find who you're looking for. And I just think that's so savvy. And I don't know. I can just tell that I think you're just going to be a winner. And I just thought that was awesome. So that's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nah, we're reaching time, so I just wanted to say, what's one thing, in startup, you were like, if I could go back and just know this before starting, what is it?
I think for me personally, like I always say the same thing on every show, so I'm going to say something different. Like have non-negotiable, so remember to take care of yourself. I for like the first 2 years, and again, I went from like one extreme of like being a bodybuilder, training like 12 hours a week, weighing everything that went in my body, to the opposite, like making cookie dough, taste testing every batch in the kitchen, not exercising because I thought, oh, if I take time away and don't work on the business and I exercise, like I could be doing so many other things. And I literally lived like that for 2 years. And, like I felt horrible. I was exhausted. I, was tired all the time, lethargic. And then I realized, okay, like I need to start doing the things that make me feel good. And like my non-negotiable is to exercise for 45 minutes every day, regardless of what's happening. Like whatever is happening can wait for 45 minutes. So I always try to do that. And then just like the other thing that I need to get back to that I was really good at is journaling. And just like talking about like things you're grateful for. Like I have this journal and it's called Mindful as Fuck, and it has like templates. So it's like things I'm grateful for, reflections, struggles, and goals. And if I'm having a hard day, I flip back and I look at all the struggles that I had and like I got over them, right? So it's kind of like a way to kind of like check myself and be like, okay, you got through this, you're going to get through whatever you're going through now. So I think the mindfulness and then taking care of your body and your mind, those are priorities and they shouldn't be neglected no matter how much stuff you have to do.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Can you give a shout out to all your handles and anything? How do we reach you? And how do we find more about Brodo for anybody who's listening on audio? And then, of course, we will get everything tagged properly.
Yeah, so our website's brodo.ca. We have a wait list if you want to sign up to that if you're based in the US. And then you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Erica Rankin. And then my personal Instagram is Life of Erica, and the O in of is a 0.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on. This was great.
Fantastic. Thank you for being on. Learned a lot, and I'm a little motivated on this Friday talking to you. I'm not going to do any more work, though. I'm not doing any more work. This is it. We just podcast on Friday, all right? Awesome.
Totally fair.
Yeah. All right, man. We'll until next time, good luck to you. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm just excited to kind of sit on the sidelines and see what you come up with next. And hopefully we'll have a part 2 with you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Erica.